Now recognize Lieutenant Colonel Mann for his opening statement.
Chairman McCall, Ranking Member Meeks, committee members, thank you for this opportunity to testify before you today. I'm here to relive August 2021 with all of you, not as a Democrat or as a Republican, but as an American combat veteran that's going to do my best to represent over 800,000 Afghanistan war veterans and their families, but with my own point of view. I'm a Green Beret and a retired lieutenant colonel with nearly 23 years in service and 3 combat tours in Afghanistan. I'd like to start with a question. What does an American promise mean today? There's a promise in the military that is both explicit and implicit. I have your back. We were trained that way. It's in our blood. But in August 2021, the leaders who held us to that standard went silent while our Afghan allies were left behind. The U.S. government may not have had the backs of our Afghan allies, but our veterans did. For as long as we've been a nation, our veterans have been a moral compass for doing the right thing, especially in hard times. As we try to figure out where to go from here, I suspect we're going to need that moral compass more than ever. You won't find many veterans sitting out here today who relish being involved in this Afghan evacuation. We paid our dues, and we tried to move on with our lives. I know jumping back into the quagmire of Afghanistan was certainly not part of my military retirement plan. But like thousands of other veterans across the country watching Kabul collapse on August 15, 2021, I received a phone call from a friend that absolutely crushed me. "I'm not afraid to die," he said to me. "I just don't want to die alone." Those were the words that dragged me back into the Afghanistan conflict. His name was Sergeant First Class Nazimuddin Nizami, but I just called him Nizam. His father was a Mujahideen fighter who was killed by the Soviets when he was 4 months old. He had no money, no family, no hope. Yet somehow he became an Afghan commando, one of the elite warriors who were trained by U.S. Special Operations to do really 95% of the fighting in the country. Green Berets, including me, who worked with Nizam, we loved him like a brother. He volunteered for every mission, every day. He was family. But despite numerous inquiries to the State Department, Congress, and even Army Special Operations headquarters about his SIV status, Kabul was falling and no one was coming to help him. This was a guy who was shot through the face, protecting U.S. Green Berets from a Taliban ambush. And for me, he was the same guy that even while he was being hunted and texted by the Taliban, would call me to ask how my kids were doing. Over the next few weeks, I assembled a small team of volunteers, mostly veterans from across the country, that we called Task Force Pineapple, to guide Nizam and hundreds more to safety. We didn't have any resources or battlefield access or time, but we had something that a lot of people didn't: relationships and trust. We used cell phones, knowledge of the terrain, and an encrypted chat room to guide at-risk commandos and their families at night, navigating through that suffocating crowd, through an open sewage canal, and then into position to link up with known NATO service members like Aiden, who were standing watch near a 4-foot hole in the perimeter fence. Pineapple wasn't the only group. There were hundreds of ad hoc volunteer groups doing similar work, many of them sitting out here today. From breakfast tables to basements across the world. Jane, a Gold Star wife who lost her husband Chris in Afghanistan. Will, a double amputee, fighting to save the interpreter who saved his life on the battlefield, and dozens, even hundreds more. We helped hundreds of allies, but thousands were left behind, and at great cost to this vulnerable veteran population who had already given so much. My buddy Steve, who was racked with post-traumatic stress and a traumatic brain injury from an IED, screamed into his pillow and pounded his bed because his children were in the next room. As his former interpreter was detained at a Taliban checkpoint and was pleading over the phone, "Steve, they are beating my wife. My children are watching this, for God's sakes. What should I do? Can I fight them? Why is this happening?" Jay, a former Navy SEAL in Pineapple, received a text on Signal from his Afghan partner. "My daughter has been trampled, sir. I know we're going to miss our chance to escape, but she's unconscious and barely breathing." It's okay, my friend. Thank you for trying. This whole thing has been a gutting experience. I never imagined I would witness the kind of gross abandonment followed by career-preserving silence of senior leaders, military and civilian. As a result of the way that we've left Afghanistan, we're on the front end of a national security crisis as 27 violent extremist groups are now operating on former NATO security bases with Taliban top cover. And I think we're on the front end of a mental health tsunami, as 73% of our Afghan war veterans say they feel betrayed by how this war ended. Calls to the VA hotline have spiked 81% in the first year since the Afghan withdrawal, and they keep coming. My friend Brad was found dead a few months ago in a Mississippi hotel room. His wife Dana confirmed to me that the Afghan abandonment reactivated all the demons that he had managed to put behind him from our time in Afghanistan together. And he just couldn't find his way out of the darkness of that moral injury. America is building a nasty reputation for multi-generational systemic abandonment of our allies that we leave as smoldering human wreckage from the Montagnards of Vietnam to the Kurds in Syria. Our veterans know something else that this committee might do well to consider. We might be done with Afghanistan, but it's not done with us. The enemy has a vote. If we don't set politics aside and pursue accountability and lessons learned to address this grievous moral injury on our military community and right the wrongs that have been inflicted on our most at-risk Afghan allies, this colossal foreign policy failure will follow us home and ultimately draw us right back into the graveyard of empires where it all started. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Senator Cornyn. Next would be Senator Bennett, followed by Senator Cassidy.
I'm going to yield to Mr. Cassidy, if that's all right.
Nobody can say there's no collegiality in the finance.
I'll take it after.
Senator Cassidy.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary, the President keeps saying he does not wish to have cuts in social. Is he aware that under current law, when the program goes broke in 9 years, that there will be a 24% benefit cut for those who are current recipients? Is he aware of that?
Well, it's clear that Social Security...
But is he, I apologize for interruption, but I have limited time. Is the President aware that when social goes broke in 9 years, under current law, there's a 24% cut in benefits for people who are currently receiving?
If we don't do anything about it, I think that's about right. But
okay, let me
the
ask.
President will wants to strengthen Social Security.
In
and
the
make sure that doesn't
$4.5
happen.
trillion of taxes the President has proposed, are any of those taxes going to shore up Social Security? I actually know that answer. The answer is of the $4.5 trillion in taxes he has proposed, not a dime is going to shore up Social Security. Does the President know personally anybody who is dependent upon Social Security, and if their benefits are cut by 24%, they will slide into poverty? It's hard for you to know, so I'll give you a pass on that.
The President knows many people on Social Security.
Then why doesn't the President care?
He cares very deeply.
Then where is his plan?
He stands ready to work with
That's
Congress
a lie,
to address...
because when a bipartisan group of senators has repeatedly requested to meet with him about social, so that somebody who is a current beneficiary will not see her benefits cut by 24%, we have not heard anything on our request. And we've made multiple requests to meet with the President. Now, you can't comment on that, I realize that, but that is a fact. And if you've been told to say he stands ready to meet, I will tell you there's absolutely no evidence because we have not gotten our meeting.
Well, I believe the President does stand ready to work with Congress
empirically, that is not
to address
true.
this issue.
Now, the President in the past has proposed increasing taxes on those making over $400,000 to pay for it. Although he's not made that formally, he has said that in the past. Now, he's also proposed to tax them more to pay for Medicare and also to close the debt and deficit. So what would the rates have to be on that 2% of Americans who earn over $400K in order to do Medicare, the debt and deficit, and also to address our 75-year shortfall in Social Security. Do you have any sense of what the rates would have to be?
Well, he has proposed explicit increases in tax rates on very high income.
But do you think it's realistic that he can pay for Medicare, debt and deficit, and also address a 75% shortfall in social, a 75-year shortfall in social, by only taxing, by only going, the only thing he's going to do is to lay higher taxes on those who make more than 2%. I'm sure there's a projection of how much those rates would have to be. Can you tell us what those rates would have to be to do everything he is saying?
I can't tell you that, but I do know that he's put on the table many proposals that would raise very substantial revenues.
But of that
and-
4.5 trillion, not a dime is going to social. And if you cannot tell me, I presume that they've not actually modeled what those rates would have to be, which tells me that he's actually not been developing his plan. Now, this is incredibly worrisome from a president who should be sympathetic with someone who, under current law, is going to get a 24% cut
The
in her
president
benefits.
is completely committed to protecting seniors who rely on Social
Now,
Security.
if we doubled our debt to GDP ratio, just theoretically, if you will, and aside from our conversation, if we doubled that GDP to debt ratio, what effect would that have on the economy?
So right now, and in the president's budget proposal,
If I asked you just the theoretical independently of the budget proposal.
if we were to double the debt to GDP ratio,
Yes.
I don't see why we would need.
But
to
if we
double.
did, just you're an economist, if we did, what would be the effect upon the economy?
Well, it would tend to raise net interest costs.
Would it be a negative effect on the economy? Of course it would be.
Of course, yes.
Yeah, of course it would be. We've actually modeled this. For the president to do nothing, let's assume that we cast aside current law and we just double the national debt, and that's what it would do. It would have a devastating effect upon the economy. CBO says they cannot model the deleterious effects that would occur because of that. So we have a situation where the president has not proposed a single plan. He has turned down multiple requests for meetings with senators, and our options are a 24% cut on a person currently receiving, doubling our national debt, which CBO says cannot be modeled, and you agree that would be a deleterious effect. And he's not modeled the tax rates that would be required if he just wants to raise taxes.
Look, what I know is that the president is committed to Social Security. He stands ready to work with Congress, and he's put on
I'm
the
out of
table
time. I don't mean to be rude, but
many
since I've had
tax
multiple
proposals.
requests on a bipartisan basis to meet with him and he's turned everyone down, that rings hollow.
My colleague's out of time, and I would just caution colleagues, we got plenty of differences around here, but accusing witnesses of lying is over the line.
I accept that, and I did not mean that for the Madam Secretary, who is merely saying that which she's been told. I'm saying it for an empiric observation. When the president says he's ready to meet, and he's turned down multiple
The time of the
times.
gentleman's expired, accusing witnesses of lying.
But I
is
did not
over the
accuse
line.
Thức trọn đêm nay để nhớ thương anh. Em nghe tình yêu thức dậy êm đềm. Nhớ từng nụ cười ánh mắt, nhớ lời ngọt ngào âu yếm, tóc em thơm giấc ngủ dịu hiền. Biết giờ này anh có nhớ em không? Có nghe tình yêu thức dậy trong lòng? đêm từng màu thời gian đến, bóng hình người mình yêu mến, ôi nhớ gì hơn nhớ người yêu. Anh ơi, lòng em thì rất chân thành, ước nguyện trọn đời yêu anh, chớ đừng giận hơn em nhé. Anh ơi, đừng bao giờ nói chia lìa, sẽ làm tội nghiệp em lắm, đã thương nhau chớ phụ tình nhau. Thức trọn đêm nay để nhớ thương anh, sương rơi lạnh câm cánh vật im lìm. Ước gì mình đừng ngăn cách, ước gì nhà mình chung vách, hai đứa mình thức trắng đêm nay. Anh ơi, lòng em thì rất chân thành, ước nguyện trọn đời yêu anh, chớ đừng giận hơn em nhé. Anh ơi, đừng bao giờ nói chia lìa, sẽ làm tội nghiệp em lắm, đã thương nhau chớ phụ tình nhau. Thức trọn đêm nay để nhớ thương anh, sương rơi lạnh câm cánh vật im lìm. Ước gì mình đừng ngăn cách, ước gì nhà mình chung vách, hai đứa mình thức trắng đêm nay. Ước gì mình đừng ngăn cách, ước gì nhà mình chung vách, hai đứa mình thức trắng